Oh, there's been such a wonderful discussion and things. I want to begin with that claim about love wins, and I think it's important to understand that as a hypothesis. And Tavis is simply saying that he's willing to live the hypothesis. He's willing to make a wager on that in order to generate things that would not be generating if he gave in to something else. Now, why is that important? That's important precisely for this reason. When you actually look, for example, at Tavis himself as a living epistle. This morning he was at East Boston High School. And what he told them is, actually, I came here as much or more for you young folk as for the law students at Harvard, even though I'm glad to be in both places. Why is that very important? It's important because I think there's a danger, my dear brother, in ever dividing the world into different spaces where there's a ivory tower here and there's streets here. You see, as soon as we walk out of this building, there's Oxford Street. That's a street. There's some decent folk, lukewarm folk, and probably some gangsters who are going to be walking down that street. We go to Dorchester, Roxbury. What you got? Streets. You got decent folk, you got some lukewarm folk, and you got some gangsters walking down those streets. The world consists of a whole lot of different streets. Some streets are more economically privileged than others. Then we say, oh, you got Harvard. Oxford Street is more economically privileged. But don't ever think that the same issues of white supremacy and male supremacy, class power and privilege are not operating at Harvard Law School. That's operating in the streets of Dorchester. They have very different contexts of operation, but the world is constituted in such a way that it's just all these streets. So the ivory tower suggests that somehow it's above the street. No. There's street life at Harvard. And it flips the other way. It flips the other way. That there is enlightenment on the streets of Dorchester. That's why we need one another. You see what I mean? But your challenge remains. How do we translate it? That's that third moment we're talking about. Movement linked to momentum. When, for example, with the covenant, Brother Tavis goes to 22 different cities, hitting church. Now, we didn't get to Boston. And there's a reason for that we don't have to go into. You know what I mean? I mean, Boston Negroes, very complicated folk. They are. If you got to choose between Boston and Detroit, where you think you're going to go? Come on now. Now, we love Boston black folk, and the next tour we are going to come to Boston. But we hit 22 cities, but what do? We made sure that in those churches, many churches wouldn't take us, right? That's all right. They just got to grow up. But what we did was what? Embrace as many as we could. You see what I mean? Whosoever will, let them come. We tried to embrace as many as we could, and that went far beyond the street life at Harvard. See, it was a street life in Brooklyn. It was a street life in Detroit, a street life in Chicago, and so in LA, and so forth and so on. So that the issue of the streets is one that we should not kind of, when I say fetishize, I mean ascribe a magical power to it such that if only folk on the street who are catching hell were on the move. No, we need each other. We need all brothers and sisters, educated, uneducated, semi-crypto, right across the board, and educated in different ways. Now, when the brother talked about hip-hop, this is very important. Why is that so? Because we've got a younger generation who has been taught by a postmodern mass media not to concern itself with community building, not to highlight what Tavis highlights on shows on radio and TV, which is all of the courageous folks whose actions are invisible, trying to struggle against AIDS, domestic violence, struggling against various attacks on gentrification and so forth. That is taking place in our communities. We don't know about it because the media doesn't highlight it. So that people need to have access to it by means of media. He's one of the few who does that courageously and in a visionary way. But at the same time, we also need what? We also need a generation of young folk who can take the most powerful form of cultural expression on the globe today, which is hip-hop culture, And older folk just have to acknowledge that. As much as you love Curtis and Luther and so forth, they not on the cutting edge. It's Jay-Z and dot, 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 dot. Rod Digger, it's Busta Rhymes, it's Common, it's Paris, and so on. It's Lupe, what's the little Negro name? Lupe Fiasco. These are very important figures in terms of the impact on the younger generation. The question becomes, how do you reach folk who are not in schools, not in churches? This is true for our churches, right? Not enough young folk there. They're not in our mosques. They're not in our synagogues. Where are they? They on the corner and they listening to the massacre. They listening to Kingdom Come. They listening to even Fiasco. They're listening to, see what I mean? So how do we get those artists, some of whom are enlightened, some of whom need more work, like all of them. Some of them need a whole lot of work too, but you know what I'm talking about. How do we ensure that they are integral to this momentum and movement in their own way, even as we do it at Harvard, as we do it at BU, as we do it in high school, college, and so forth? I think one of the reasons why you got the magnificent tribute and spontaneous applause is because we recognize that even though there's a lot of different streets, the pain and suffering and misery on the streets where you courageously work is something we identify with. That's why we salute you. But we all need each other. And that's what this brother Tavis is all about. And I'm so glad he came to Harvard Law. Thank you all for coming out. Stay strong.
Let me, before I sit, for all the students here, before we sit to sign whatever books you have, I'll be happy to do it right quick. But for all the students here, let me just close by adding my thank you as well. This evening was built around my invitation to be here. Thank you. I'm so honored that you came to see Dr. West and yours truly. But to every student in here, I want you to know how proud we are of you. How proud we are of you. And you stay strong. Thank you very much for coming out.